Kieran Donovan, we'll stay with you because I'm looking forward to what you have to say about the next team up. They finished second in the division last year, 8-9, the Dolphins. Bookies have them at over under total of 7.5. I suspect that might even be on the high side for you. You might be banging the under there. You're no great fan of Mike McDaniel and his flying Dolphins.
Well, you were on about banging the under so often ago. This is where I'm banging the under anyway. And I look. Can they get to 7.5 wins? Maybe they can. I don't see it happening. But yeah, look. I mean, I've been on record many times in saying that I have absolutely no confidence in Mike McDaniel, and it's only been reinforced this offseason with, again, more strange, inexplicable kind of sound bites. They've even in the players that they've lost that have moved to other teams. Jalen Ramsey talked about respect for the head coach, and really he said a lot without saying it about how he felt about Mike McDaniel. I just don't think he's a guy that has the locker room, that has the respect of the players. It's not that you need everybody to be big, bold, brash, and tough, but I just don't think he gives any. He just doesn't give any confidence that he knows what he's doing in terms of being a leader of these players. Yes, a very, very intelligent offensive mind, an excellent coach in his own right, and has proven that to get to where he is. But I just do not think he's head coach material. And then the organization itself, I mean, you'd wonder what's going on with Tyreek Hill week to week. Having said that, his talent is undoubted. Waddle, Achane, I mean, they've got, again, on paper, this potent offense, and Tua, who is a guy who, I almost feel sorry for, because we talk about his physical health and his whether he should even be on the field. But I mean, again, he's shown himself to be a very accurate quarterback, but I don't think he really has respect around the league as a top tier quarterback. I think, look, I'm going to keep it short. I think Mike McDaniel is going to be the first coach to be fired this season. Simple as that.
Kieran Boyle, as Kieran has outlined there, like there are worrying signs if you're following the tea leaves here about the state of the dressing room or locker room. Jalen Ramsey wanted out and got out. I'm not sure Minkah Fitzpatrick coming the other way is necessarily the content and happy and supportive locker room presence you want behind you if things are a little bit combustible. Tyreek Hill clearly wanted out, although he's still there. There is a lot of talent, and if you have Tua locked in, and if they can unlock Achane again, who's back from injury, they have the pieces to do more than they've been able to do. But, we've been saying that for a couple of years and it hasn't come to pass.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the problem is the perception that the Dolphins have, and it's just that kind of soft underbelly that they can't shake. I was down in that area last week, talking to a couple of people, couple of Dolphin fans, and they're not high on this team at all either. I think, like Kieran was saying, McDaniel has worn his welcome out, but from Tyreek Hill to Ramsey, I think the act is up. I think his act has got stale now, and I think you have to wonder if players are even listening to him right now. I think Kieran's right. I think I don't want to call him a coach because he's still there. But you'd have to think that he's probably one of the first to get canned. Again, this team rests with Tua. They rise and they fall with Tua. We have to think that he's going to get injured again at some stage. But the kind of heart of the team just doesn't have any strength as far as I'm concerned. The O-line is really weak. I think I read somewhere it's ranked 28th out of 32. I think it might be even lower than that. They don't really have much there. Patrick Paul, I mean, Aaron Brewer, Wilson Jackson. Would we even be able to recognize these guys? They're not household names. Are they going to be enough to keep Tua upright? I don't think so. We all know about the weapons they have on offense, but it kind of goes back to McDaniel. Do the players still believe in him? Has he been there a year too long? Is the message gone stale? Do they have the ability to play in weather less than 40 degrees? That's always the question. And it's the same old questions. It seems like we're saying the same thing every year about the Dolphins. But for me, it's just that soft perception that they still have. Teams have an identity. Teams have a kind of a characteristic. And if you were to ask, NFL teams what their perception of the Dolphins is, it will be flashy occasionally, but soft. They I don't want to say they adapt the temperature or the climate down in South Florida, but it is really easy living down there. And, it might be a little too easy for him. Just to cap up, to summarize, you got the questions about McDaniel, the substandard O-line. I'm really concerned about for their cornerback depth or even their secondary depth. I mean, Storm, when somebody like Storm Duck is your star player on the secondary, you might be in trouble. But again, if Tua goes down, you know that 8-9 record is looking real shaky. And I would probably say 7 wins is their target this year. I think there's too many questions on the key parts of this team, and I think McDaniel's on real shaky ground even in the preseason. I think he's real shaky ground, so he might be the first one gone too.
Brian, to Kieran's point, people can moan about the perception, like Lamar Jackson can moan about, that perception that he doesn't do it in the playoffs. Well, go and win a couple of playoffs games. It's the same with the Dolphins, isn't it? I mean, the die was cast for this version of the Dolphins team really when they lost that playoff game, that frostbite playoff game in Kansas City, and they were really shown up badly. And they've never gotten near that standard since, and done nothing really to close the gap that was glaringly obvious on that day. And it's hard to shift the idea, as the two lads have said, that Mike McDaniel is going to be the first one getting the shepherd's crook this season.
They were 3 games out from being the 1 seed in that season, Connor, and then they, ultimately they needed that. They needed those home games badly. They needed to secure some home field advantage. It didn't come to pass to go out immediately in that wild card game to the Chiefs. You're right. And the thing is, you're looking at how they've evolved since then, 18 months, 2 years later, and you're looking at the roster, and in their own right, they've got some great players, some fantastic players. I think they've got some better players than people give them credit for. You look at Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Minkah Fitzpatrick coming back. He probably didn't want to come back in that trade from Pittsburgh, but I think he's a player to come back. But where are the leaders? Like, where are the leaders in this team? This is the thing. We've never seen anybody over the course of the last few years when this team is struggling. Where other NFL teams have these players that kind of step up in that time to it isn't on the field enough for me. Consistency's not there in terms of the injuries he picks up. There's always the scrutiny that comes with how quickly they rush him back, and there's question marks around, is the head coach doing what's right for the player? Is he doing what's right for the team? Is he doing what's right for himself to maintain his opportunity in terms of remaining situ as the head coach? And you look at the players they have offensively and you wonder how they can put it all together. A-Chain, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They've got players. Darren Waller's come out of retirement. If he's Darren Waller we saw in LA in Vegas, that could be a player that kind of 2 years later is back playing at the potential which we saw when he was traded to the Giants. I thought it was a strange move to trade out Jonnu Smith. I thought he was one of the leading lights, the brighter spots that he had last year at tight end. He seemed to always play really well. His numbers were off the charts. He had a number of touchdowns, and yet they traded him away. Obviously, it's probably more he wanted to move on than them trying to get rid of him. I agree. I think it's a struggle this season, despite the teams around them in the division. I think they got players. I'm just not entirely sure they can put it all together. I think they'll shock a few teams over the course of the season. They may even win games early on in the season and put themselves, but ultimately they'll come short.